Okay, now that I got the layout the way I want it here on the screen, I am going to go over some exciting news here. As you watch the video playing up above me here, I want you to notice that that is a Pit 105. Pit 105. Let's adjust the camera here a little bit. Better. I decided to take my Overpower Rogue build and try to run a Pit 105 with it. I've been running 100s. I've been getting them done in about 7 minutes, so half the timer roughly. And this morning I thought, let's push it a little bit. Let's see if we can get up to 105. And I did that, and I was able to complete it. I'll admit, I did not complete it fast. It's not massive. If you see in the video there, it takes a bit to go through. I don't know, I might even be able to speed up the video play time a little bit here. Just to get to it better. So we'll zip through that. So that's playing at about 200% speed. As you can see, I'm still overpowering, getting a lot of damage out of that overpower. I really wish I could overpower every time, but it's almost impossible to get a rogue's energy much over the 200 mark. But that's okay. We're roughly hitting like 170. You need 275 on the Banished Lords, right? So it's no matter what, as soon as you spend 275 of your primary resource, the next core skill cast is gonna overpower. So in this case, because Deathtrap is tagged as a core skill, it's overpowering. And then of course Barrage, being a core skill, is also overpowering. It'd be nice if I could find a way to pull Barrage out of the picture there so that I could get Deathtrap to be the only thing that's casting. So it would pretty much then be like every third hit of Deathtrap would be an overpower guaranteed. But in this case, it's about every fourth or fifth hit. So as you can see, there's a lot of overpower going in, and if you look at some of those oranges, they are hitting in the billions. The criticals, which are the yellows, are hitting in hundreds of millions. Some of them, you know, have like 1,000 million on it, right? And that we know is about 1 billion hits there, so it's worth it. But I was able to complete it. It took a bit to get ahead of the timer there, but I eventually did get ahead of the timer and was able to maintain staying ahead of the timer, and I completed it with about 30 seconds left on the timer, which I don't care. I don't care. 30 seconds, not a whole lot of time left on the timer for beating a pit, but it was a Pit 105 with a rogue doing a very off-meta build, right? Everybody's either doing Rain of Arrows or something else. I went with a Deathtrap build for the overall season and was able to complete a Pit 105 running an Overpower variant of the Deathtrap build. I haven't seen anybody else trying to do an Overpower, so I decided I would give it a shot. And I think I may make some tweaks to this. I may change damage to close enemies here to damage, overpower damage increase, right? Same thing down here. Instead of going with critical strike damage, we may trade those out for overpower damage so that when the overpower damage hits, it's doing a lot more damage. That's the goal, right? But for the most part, I'm able to clear Pit 100s pretty much with no problem, and today was able to clear Pit 105. So I'm very excited for that. I'm going to speed this video up a little bit more. Let's see if we can get to the ending of it here a little faster. Let's go with 300%. I guess I can't go that high. Can I do 250? No, it's 200 the max? Yeah, I guess 200 is your maximum speed. I can speed that up. So I can just jump along here. We'll get it closer to the end. So there you go. As you can see, right, we're at 2 minutes now. And right at the 2 minute mark, I'm in fighting the boss. And it takes pretty much a minute and a half to beat the boss. It got down to the wire there with Slither. There's a lot of attacks going on, a lot of overpower hits that were hitting, and it took a bit. It took a minute to get it down. As you can see on that timer there, we're down to a minute and a half remaining, and we're just over halfway done here. We're approaching the 1/3 remaining on the life, and then it gets down to that wire. It really does. It gets under a minute remaining. I want to say it was like 30 seconds. 30 seconds remaining or something. And I was able to kill and defeat the boss. Yes! So there you go. Pit 105 cleared. That's crazy to me with this build, considering it's not a very powerful build. It's not a meta build of any kind that anybody else is really doing. But I was able to make it work. So I'm definitely going to say that this is S tier class at this point. If it can clear above a 100 and be able to do it fairly decently. So a couple of changes I made since my last video that I uploaded the other day. One of the changes I made was I added points into cold imbuement and then added that in place of grenades. Grenades gets a core tag, so if I'm using grenades while I'm using Deathtrap and I'm using Barrage, right, grenades itself will steal the overpower hits sometimes from the Deathtrap. Sorry, I'm just still excited here. And the problem with that is Deathtrap is really our major damage dealer here. So, you know, I'm gonna remove the media source video so it's not in the way. You've seen the Pit 105, so that's all that matters. So we'll get that out of the way. But our main damage dealer is going to be Deathtrap, and Deathtrap gets his ultimate tag, his core tag. He's a trap and he's a stun grenade, right? So that's all going to be benefited by our one board here, which is the cheap shot. We're not worried about the cheap shot side of it so much as we are the glyph. The glyph of explosive is what's really giving us a lot of this damage, right? Because we're getting a 1,368.5% stun grenade damage, and then that 30.1% multiplicative grenade damage for stun grenades. And then, of course, we get the extra buff of gaining another 15% multiplicative damage reduction whenever we drop a stun grenade, which is pretty much all the time when you're dropping the death traps, right? So I started thinking about the control glyph that I'm using. Its additional bonus is 10 times increased damage to slowed or chilled enemies, or instead 20% multiplied increased damage to stunned or frozen enemies. So I'm trying to go for stunning as much as I can, and I'm trying to go for freezing the enemies as much as I can. But if I can't freeze them and I can at least chill them, then I'll get that 10% multiplier, right? So the idea was, well, what if I started using the cold imbuement? Basically, all I'm doing is I'm holding down Shadow Step, holding down cold imbuement, holding down Barrage, and then, of course, force standstill attack, right? So I'm on my space bar for that, and then I'm just constantly tapping Deathtrap. And that launches Deathtrap over and over and over and over and over again. And that being done, the cold imbuement is constantly getting casted. So Barrage is always cold imbued, right? And then so when Barrage reaches out and hits stuff, they get chilled. Sometimes they get frozen. Pretty much always getting chilled. So now I'm getting that that damage boost from the control glyph, which is really really nice, and was able to push a little further. Of course, you know, caltrops also uh, get tossed out occasionally. Um, you have to be careful with the caltrops because the caltrops being a core skill, they will steal the overpower if not cast at the right time. I'm not really trying to time things out for the caltrop, so I'm just kind of dropping it as soon as I get the into the boss battles. Usually, I'll drop the caltrops first, and then go into holding my key down and attack with just the death trap. So that way, there caltrops is out, but it was put out first, so it's not stealing the um, overpower. So, because the whole idea is your next core skill overpowers, and we want that to be death trap as much as possible. So, you know, one of the things I was looking at was seeing if there was a way that if I could just get something else to suck down all the energy here instead of having to worry about it being done through the core skills and using Beastfall boots. It would be nice if there was an aspect that, I don't know, caused death trap to, instead of having a cooldown, cost energy or something. It would be pretty sweet. Um, and I may even change this. I don't know. I may change the caltrops out. I don't use them that often, and so I don't know. Maybe putting a poison imbuement on in its place. Um, what could we get out of poison imbuements, right? Or even shadow imbuements, and rotate between shadow and cold. I don't know. Um, I don't know. Maybe I'll take some points out of caltrops and put them in something like chilling weight, right? So the movement speed's reduced, and we gain a 5% multiplicative increased chill effect, which means they're going to chill more often. We should get that 10 times multiplier more often off the control glyph. I could put more points into poison here. You deal 6 times increased poisoning damage. So that's a possibility because one of our auras is constantly poisoning. And then we get an increased damage um, or an increased lucky hit chance for poisoning. So we may try that as well. Um, I don't know. There's different things to tweak here. Um, I would like to maybe make use of weapon mastery because we do. I don't know. We do barrage. That's a 4 times increased damage to vulnerable enemies. Um, I guess. Well, now we'd be doing critical strike damage because we're using a crossbow here, so we can get an increase to our critical strike damage. Maybe that's what we'll go with. Um, the daggers, we don't really use them that often unless maybe you swap flurry out for um, barrage, which you can do. You can use flurry. I have done that a couple of times, gone back and forth between flurry and barrage. Now, keep in mind with the way the board works and the way all of your skill ads and all that come on here, we have points in these in their first block that makes them usable. So, you know, I could actually come down here and swap my skills out, and I can switch to flurry. Now, what I typically do when I do that, though, is I put some points into flurry. And the reason why I put points into flurry is at least one in the first block and the second block, right? So that it applies vulnerable. And then I go with improved flurry, which dashes me to the target. It also heals me for 10% of my maximum life, which is nice, but it dashes me to the target. So that's the nice thing there. I can use that as a dash to get around the board pretty quickly, but it doesn't count as a mobility skill. So while it gets you around the board pretty fast, it doesn't count as mobility, and therefore it's also not agility. So you're getting your cutthroat out of it, but then you don't get your marksman out of it, right? Because you gave up your barrage, and barrage is a marksman skill. So that kind of kills our close quarters combat passive, which we don't want to do. We want to keep the close quarters passive here. So, and keep in mind that the close quarters is, it's based on your damage versus close bonus. So that's another thing you have to kind of take into account. If you give up critical strike damage, give up damage to close enemies in place of, say, ultimate damage, or I forget what the other one was I just said a bit ago, but in either case, we'll lose on that close quarters bonus. And so in this case here, I want to keep this ultimate damage because it's so high, but I'm wondering if I can trade out the critical strike damage for damage to close, right? I don't think I can imprint this one anymore. Yeah, it's already been tempered enough. I would need to find another temper, but I think I've tempered it 2 times, and that's the max you can do, so I don't think I can retemper this a 3rd time. But maybe if I can find another good dagger, get it rolled the way I want it to be, get the chance for Deathtrap to deal double damage where it needs to be, and then of course trade out the damage of 66.3 temper for damage to close. That would increase our close quarters combat bonus, which is what we really, really want to do. And that's why we're trying to go for the damage to close enemies, right? We're trying to get that to be about as close to 100% as possible, if not 100%. I don't know. It's been a successful build so far. Again, since my last video, pretty much the only thing I really traded out was I got rid of the grenades themselves. I wasn't really using them, so I took the points out of those and I put them into the cold imbuement in order to get the damage boost from that. And like I said, I'm going to figure out something else to do with caltrops here. I may take those points and maybe put them into other passives that I might feel are more beneficial. And then at that point, it's just Shadow Step, Cold Imbuement, and Barrage being held down at all times while using your Force attack, and then tapping Deathtrap. And as you're moving around and jerking around, you know, you'll see if I add the video back in here. I'll add the media source back in here and I'll play the video again. As you can see, those are always casting. They're constantly casting. Just holding down the Force attack. And the Shadow Step is allowing me to move around the board. And then of course, Shadow Step is being that it is a cutthroat and mobility, and an agility skill, it's kicking in some of my other passives, right? So on the Paragon board here, there are, I think it's fluidity that we can go with. I have to get mine up, but like fluidity, when you cast an agility skill, you deal 10 times increased damage and gain 15 times increased energy regeneration for 6 seconds, right? So our energy drops, fills back up, drops, fills back up. I might put fluidity in place of canny here. I just put canny in. I was not using canny before. In place of canny, I was using, what was it, Devious, to get the 10 times multiplier. So then I decided, hey, I might trade that out for canny because he has a 15 times multiplier. I did have to rearrange this board a little bit to get the intelligence where it needed to be. I still have Paragon levels to earn, and I can add some more intelligence on this board. So we've got, what, 1 more here. That's 2, that's 3, that's 4. 4 more intelligence we can add. And then that's going to take this up to probably closer to 18 point something increased non-physical damage. And then of course we'll get the extra added legendary bonus of increased non-physical damage. And the Deathtrap is considered non-physical damage because it's shadow-based damage. So the thought here is that cannon should benefit the Deathtrap a little bit more. But again, I'm also thinking of going with fluidity once I get it to level 100, because it's a good multiplier there as well, right? It grants a bonus to all the magic nodes. When we cast our agility, which is the shadow step, then we're getting a 10-time bonus automatically, and that's going to be every time because we're constantly casting agility. And then we'll get whatever the legendary bonus ends up stacking up to. It's at 9.4 right now, so I'm assuming 10 more levels, it'll probably be right at about 10% multiplicative, so we'll find out. I'm going to keep playing, I'm going to keep working. I'm done with the season overall. I've achieved everything in the season that you pretty much achieve. I've gotten all my reps done with this particular character, just like I got them all done with my Bloodwave Necromancer. So at this point, it's more about running pits and then maxing the character. So hopefully, you're giving the Deathtrap build a chance. I guess I could just call it Deathtrap. Since I'm not using grenades anymore, I should probably just call it the Deathtrap Overpower build. But he does launch grenades because Deathtrap has the stun grenade tag to it and is constantly launching stun grenades. So it's still a Grenades of Deathtrap build in that regard, and maybe I'll just leave the name that way. So, but either case, I was able to clear a Pit 105 with this build after switching it over to the Cold Imbuement and giving up the grenades in general. And so if you like what you're seeing, watch all my previous videos on this particular build. Build yours out the same way, and then just enjoy playing. When it comes to T4 content with this build, it crushes absolutely everything. Duriel, Andariel, Beast in the Ice, all of them, they're nothing. They go down very, very fast. I have not tried taking on Lilith yet, but that's mostly because Lilith is an annoyance. Since they force you to go through all the stupid animations, similar to Andariel. Like I with this one attack with this, and Andariel is pretty much dead. She's down to that point where it only takes one more hit on her and she's dead. But then you have to go through the animations, right? And then once the animations go by, then you hit her and she dies. So it's basically a two hit thing. And I think the animations part is just stupid. It's an annoyance that they force you to go through that. But I'm fairly confident this build would even take out Lilith if you run through the animations and run around and avoid everything like you're supposed to, and then go through her stupid cycles. So in either case, Grenades of Deathtrap. It's a cold Deathtrap. Give it a shot. Give it a try. Let me know what you think in the comments. Until next time.